Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is a recap Tuesday on the Money Down Pod. That's my guy, Sean White. You can follow him on Twitter at DumpsterFireFan. Myself, Kayvon Izami at Kayvon_sports on Twitter. You can follow the show at Money Down Pod. Thank you so much for tuning in to this Tuesday reaction pod as week 2 is in the books. And week 2 is always fun because week 1 is overreaction. Everyone freaks out about week 1. And in week 2, you start to really get some hard data on what these teams are. Obviously, it's still early, but you start to see trends. You start to see if teams are real or if they're fake. So there's a lot for us to break down today. That's for sure. And there's a storyline that we're going to start with that I think a lot of people are just kind of baffled about, but not so much on this show if you've listened to us in the past. Sean, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. I mean, I had the victory for the Jags over the Colts this weekend. We're going to get into the Colts some later in the show, but that was a big time thing for me. Glad the Jags are actually looking pretty good for once this year. And I mean, just excited to get to all these games. I love watching football like this. It's been a good weekend. I can't wait to break down some stuff.
I think that if you're a Jags fan, not only should you be happy about the win, but you guys are by far through 2 weeks in the worst division of football. I mean, that's pretty noticeable. I think you should have very, very high confidence that you can win that division after what we're seeing about. And we'll get into it more when we get to the Colts and stuff, but there's not a single team out there that looks powerhouse in that division.
Yeah,
which is why I feel
that's
confident.
Been the case like the last 6-7 years, basically. It's always one team, and then everyone else kind of sucks. But
I mean, I think that you guys have a great chance to win that division. All right, let's get into it. Let's get into a team that won in week 2, but I don't think that you can. I don't think that if you put True Serum into any Broncos fan or even to anybody in that Broncos organization right now, they are feeling happy or excited with where they're at right now. They started off the season in which they have a very tough schedule with 2 teams that should have been lock wins, easy wins. I understand the Seattle game. The emotions were high. I picked Seattle +6 because I knew it was going to be a tough game. But they definitely have not started off the season the way people have thought. And Sean, there is a lot of ways that we can say why that's happening. I don't think it's just on one person, but I do think that Nathaniel Hackett, I think one thing that is very obvious is that Nathaniel Hackett looks lost. He looks completely lost on the sideline. I understand he's a good play caller. You can tell he knows what he's doing when he's calling plays and some of the plays that he's drawing up. But in terms of what to do during the game and what to do when you're in the red zone, he looks completely out of his league. He looks like he doesn't know what it's like to be a head coach. He looks like he's never had any situation that he's been in before where he's had to make those decisions. And listen, it's early, so I'm not going to sit here and say that I was 100% right because it's early. But when the Denver made that call, that hire, I told you and everybody else on this pod, well, why is he so special? Like, what has he done in any of his stops to tell me that this guy is going to be a good head coach? I didn't think he was good in Jacksonville. I don't think he did anything good in Jacksonville, in my opinion. And I think Matt LaFleur and Rodgers did everything in Green Bay, and that's exactly what I said. And the only other thing that I'll add about him is Denver, like people, let's be honest here. Denver hired him because of Aaron Rodgers. That is why he got hired. We forget about that because they didn't get Aaron Rodgers. But Denver hired Nathaniel Hackett for a chance to get Aaron Rodgers. That is it. And if you're the GM right now and you're the owner, you have to be looking at this guy like this guy has no freaking clue what he is doing on the sidelines. No clue at all. We'll get into Russell Wilson in a minute, but your thoughts on that?
yeah, I think you're completely right, and you've been right all along so far about Nathaniel Hackett. You were never on the hire to start with. You were never a big guy pushing Nathaniel Hackett out there as a top candidate or anything like that. So you deserve this victory lap a little bit because you kind of saw this coming. He definitely doesn't have the game management down. I mean, just examples. The week 1 going for the field goal, 64 yards, horrible decision. And then he came back and was like, no, I've learned from that. Well, this week he's not taking a 50-some yarder, gets out there too late. They get a delay of game. They're burning timeouts left and right, but that delay of game pushes them out of range. They have to punt. Then later on in the game, crucial time, it's a close game in the fourth. You need your timeouts just in case you're going to need them at the end of the game. The Texans go back to punt. They don't even have a returner back there. I mean, they don't have anyone back there. Have to burn another timeout on special teams. Just the game management decisions are atrocious. And you kind of gave him a pass on play calling. That fourth and one from the 50, or the third one from the 50, where they handed the fullback for their option. I mean, that ain't fooling nobody, man. That's one of those. I think I'm Sean Payton plays that like they have Taysom Hill back there to do that just doesn't work unless you're Sean Payton or Andy Reid. That's just I don't know. It's almost like he's imitating other head coaches to try to look like he's smarter. He just needs to be himself, man. But what you said is actually the truth. He was hired because Aaron Rodgers was a free agent, and Denver thought they were going to get Aaron Rodgers this offseason. Once Rodgers signed that deal with Green Bay, they got Russ, but Russ and Hackett don't have any serious connection like that. Yeah. And the way Russ speaks, Russ acts like he's kind of running the show. He says it's a team effort. There's not one head coach. It's a team effort. And I think that team effort's really screwing them, especially in the red zone. In the red zone, you can see – I don't know if it's Hackett calling pass plays or Russ audibling to pass plays because he wants to stat pad a little bit because he's kind of got that ego on him.
Yes.
But in the red zone, they're throwing like 18 out of their 22 times down in the red zone area, and they only have, 2 touchdowns through 2 weeks?
Yeah.
That's terrible output there. Somebody has got to take the reins and say, we're going to run the ball a little bit. And maybe Russ just doesn't want to run it himself anymore. Maybe he's at that age where he thinks he can just win from the pocket. Okay, but you have Javonte Williams back there. You got to hand the ball off some, especially in that red area where it's tight down there. Get your offensive line a break so they can tee off and not have to pass protect in situations like that. And that's just a function of, I believe, there's 2 people butting heads right now, the coach and the quarterback, and they're both trying to make the quarterback look good with numbers, and the numbers just aren't coming because they're sitting there and trying to throw these plays in the red zone, just aren't working out. It's kind of a mess in Denver, to be honest, which some people predicted, but some people have this team in the Super Bowl, man.
I know. Yeah, you're spot on about that. This is my question to you. Are we at the point now where we might be saying Russell Wilson's a little overrated? Because listen to this, man. Are we at the point now where we're just saying maybe not overrated is the word, where he's just not what he used to be? First of all, the whole thing about him using his legs, he's got to show some gumption, man. I watched that game. There were a couple times where he could have used his legs to get first down and to get the offensive move, and he just won't do it anymore. He does not take off with his legs anymore. That's got to be so frustrating if you're a Denver fan, because that can help you move the ball. You're spot on about the red zone. You have 2 guys in Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon, who's a good player, that could help pound that ball in. They don't use it at all. They're atrocious in the red zone. They've got great weapons. I wasn't high on Nathaniel Hackett, and this could be all about him. But after 2 weeks, and after what we saw last year too, even though he had that thumb injury, but after what we saw last year and in the first 2 weeks, it looks like Russell Wilson has lost some of his mojo, some of his just top quarterback play. Is that fair to say in your opinion?
I think that's fair. I think a lot of people don't believe that, but I think they need to open their eyes and kind of see it a little bit. I saw a stat when Lamar rushed for his 100-yard game. He became the all-time leading 100-yard rusher for quarterbacks over Vic. The third person on there was Russell Wilson at 400-yard games. I'm willing to put all my money down. He'll never rush for another 100-yard game.
Agreed.
Because he's not that guy anymore. But he's not even putting the run out there as a thing that he can do. The defense can't even respect the run for him right there. That's what's killing him. And I believe Russ thinks that he's some pocket passer now, that he can just drop back 50 times like a Tom Brady, like a Peyton Manning used to, and not have to worry about doing any read option, not have to worry about doing any scramble drill type stuff and throw it. But Russ doesn't understand that what made Russell Wilson be the guy he is and be the guy that everyone thought he was a top 5, top 10 quarterback was the fact that he could go out there and bail out backwards and pirouette 2 times and throw a ball 35 yards downfield on a strike where it should have been a sack. It was those type of plays. It was those type of Kyler Murray-esque plays that made Russell Wilson what he was and made the media and the fans and everyone really love that part of him.
Yeah.
But I'm starting to kind of see what Richard Sherman's talking about because I have a funny feeling that defense used to corral him in practice nonstop.
Yeah.
Because I don't think those wonderful spinning plays was happening against the Legion of Boom and that defense back there. So I'm sure they actually saw it and were like, why is Russell Wilson getting all this praise? He's not that good. He's just breaking up plays on the defense. When we put him in the pocket in practice, he's getting picked constantly. And I think we're seeing a little bit of that now. That now that he doesn't have that athleticism in his legs, now that he's gained a little bit of weight to be a true pocket player, he's not really that guy anymore. So I agree with you. I think he's taking a step back. I'm not saying he's not some top 12, top 15 quarterback, because that he is up there still. He can still make the throws. I'm just saying he's not that special guy that a lot of people can't believe didn't get an MVP vote. He looks like that now. He looks like a guy that's never got an MVP vote before. He's more closer to that Dak Kirk Cousins range than he is that Josh Allen Mahomes range.
Yes, without a doubt. And that's not going to get it done in that AFC West. And I think it's fair to say, again, it's 2 weeks in, but I think it's completely fair to say that this might be a one and done for Nathaniel Hackett. I think it's completely
1,000%. I agree with you.
Yes, there's no doubt about it. Let's move on to another coach that is, in my opinion, is on the extreme hot seat. And Sean, I just want to go out and say this. Frank Reich, in my opinion, is the most overrated coach we have in the NFL today. And I think he might be the most overrated coach in recent NFL history. Let's look at Frank Reich, man. Frank Reich, since he got that job, has been kind of crowned as this golden boy, has been kind of crowned as this offensive genius for what he did with Philly. But I think we are realizing, and I think we saw it head-to-head last game, that Doug Peterson and Nick Sirianni might have been the ones that might have had more effect on that Philadelphia Eagles offense than we thought with Nick Wright did. And I get it, he's a former quarterback. He played in the league. A lot of people love that type of thing. A lot of players love that. A lot of media members love that. So he has this aura around him. But my goodness, this guy has done absolutely nothing. Let's go into the time machine. He had Phillip Rivers. Okay, good season, right? They went to the playoffs. They almost upset the Bills in the playoffs. They didn't get it done. Good season. But for what that roster is, they expected more. They bring in Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz, they start out season terrible. If it wasn't for Carson Wentz going on the road into San Francisco, out battling Jimmy G and getting that win, going on the road into Arizona, out battling Kyler Murray and getting that win, out battling Bill Belichick and the Patriots at home and getting that win, going head-to-head with Lamar and losing last second because their defense couldn't stop Lamar. Carson Wentz single-handedly, with a good team around them and Jonathan Taylor, but he was a big part of it, helped them get back into that season. And then they collapsed at the end, and it was all on the team. It was all on Carson Wentz. Nothing about Frank Reich, nothing about the defense, nothing about Jonathan Taylor. It was all Carson Wentz. And Jim Irsay talked to any damn person he could to blame Carson Wentz. Now we are here again. They lost even worse to Jacksonville this year than they did last year. And what's the one constant, Sean? It's Frank Reich and Chris Ballard, which I know you're going to hit on in a minute. How can we sit here today and look at Frank Reich as a good NFL coach? I think he is completely overrated, and I think he should be fired. I think if I was Jim Irsay, I know sounds like an overreaction to both of this stuff. If I was Jim Irsay, I would have fired him before the game was over. Just like we all saw Herm Edwards got fired walking off the field. I don't know if people saw that video. We saw the tarmac fire with Lane Kiffin years ago. This dude got the field fired. I would have done that with Frank Reich. I would have done that. I don't care how nice of a guy he is. Even after his press conferences, man, after they just get beat down by a young Jacksonville team, he's sitting there, we got to do. There's no fire. There's nothing. There's nothing about him that would make me run through a wall. And Carson Wentz deserves an apology from Jim Irsay and from all of those Colts people. This is absolutely ridiculous for the type of roster that they have, which I understand is a little overrated. Frank Reich is the most overrated coach in the NFL today.
Yeah, what you're saying is actually facts right there. So I'm going to just add one little bit of it because I agree with all your points there. Here's the one thing that's funny. Everyone crowned him as this guy that was the Carson Wentz turnaround guy because when he left, Carson Wentz went downhill. We sure that wasn't more on Carson Wentz's psyche with Nick Foles, with what we've talked about?
Yeah.
I feel like that had a lot more to do with it because if you watch him and Doug Peterson on the same field together, you can't tell me it was Frank Wright that was doing all that stuff with Carson Wentz. And Doug Peterson called the plays in Philly, well, just like he calls it now in Jacksonville. And I fully believe if Jacksonville continues to play the way they are, that Press Taylor is going to get some looks at head coaching stuff here the next year or two. That's going to be the same thing with Frank Wright. Press Taylor is a smart mind, but Doug's calling the plays over there. Just like when you got a coordinator with Andy Reid. Andy Reid's the one in control of that, but he does have to surround himself with good people. Like Frank Wright was a good coordinator to surround himself with. Overrated head coach at this point, though, because he had that good year with Phillip Rivers, like you said. It kind of gave him a pass for all this stuff going on. And the other big thing that Reich defenders would throw out there is, well, it's 3 different quarterbacks in 3 years. Well, that gets to my point. Everyone loves Ballard. I mean, that's all you hear. If you bring up the top GMs in the league, oh, Ballard is like one of the first 3 names mentioned. Are we sure that's not because he's just a famous GM at this point? Because I don't buy that one bit. Ballard makes some decent value picks, okay? And he can trade pretty well. But Ballard is the Danny Ainge of the NFL. That's what he is. Danny Ainge with the Celtics for years would trade away top players, would trade away these presences and get these picks back. And everyone would go, oh, Ainge fleeced them. Ainge did this. But when it came to the draft, he never, ever once packaged those picks up to get a superstar player to put his team into a championship build. They stayed average is what they did. They had 2 good draft picks, Tatum, Brown. Cool. They never packaged it for a superstar to go with them. Ballard does the same thing. He's made good picks. Quentin Nelson, but he's a guard. He's a guard. Let's be honest. You can find guards pretty much everywhere. He's a Hall of Fame guard, but that's your big value pick you did at 6. You have Michael Pittman, solid player. Jonathan Taylor, really good running back, maybe one of the best in the league in the 2nd round. The NFL is going away from run games, man. Let's be honest. Everyone has a committee now. So you can find those players. That isn't what you build around as an NFL team. It's a passing league, and their tackles are weak on the O-line, but everyone acts like their O-line's very good. Nice. Their tackles are getting beat. They were getting the brakes beat off of them all weekend on Sunday at the offensive tackle spot. It's a passing league. And not only that, it's the quarterback situation. Look at what he's done with the quarterback situation. He refuses to pay the ammo to trade up to get a young guy. He won't go after these young players that everyone seems to do. And he learned under Veach. That's where he got his claim from. He learned under Veach in Kansas City. What did they do? He traded up and got Mahomes, the best quarterback in the league. That's what he did. Chris Ballard has yet to do that. Instead, he keeps going with old stopgap players. And I'm sorry to Matt Ryan fans out there. I don't know if he's it behind this O-line. He can't move. And the O-line is not good enough to keep him standing. Unless they have a lead and can run Jonathan Taylor down your throat and play action, this Colts team can't win games. And that's just the truth of it. So until Ballard can actually go out there and get a quarterback, go out there and hit some high-value positional picks and not just go after great character guys and win every trade, I'm going to continue to call him overrated because every time the media brings up Ballard as being one of the best GMs in the league, look at his team and how they underperform every year because he won't go and take a big swing at anyone. He just won't go do it, and that's why I think he's an overrated GM. And I think the Colts are in a bad spot with this GM and coach combo right here that I think one of them or both of them are going to have to get fired for them to come out of it because they need a quarterback, and I don't know if these 2 are the ones to even get it done right there.
Yeah, so well said. And think about what you just said. Matt Ryan, that offensive line has become so bad where Matt Ryan can't move. Well, guess what? They had a quarterback that can move in Carson Wentz. But they had to throw someone under the bus because they didn't want to open up the covers and see the real damn problem, which is the guys that have been there the whole time, Frank Wright and Chris Ballard. I don't know how Jim Irsay is not just steaming with fire right now, man. I don't know how he is not pissed off after what just has happened the first 2 weeks. Again, kind of like Denver, these first 2 games, while we all expected Jacksonville to be a better team, and we all thought Houston would put up a little bit of a fight throughout the year, These first 2 games were supposed to be wins for the Colts as they then go into the Chiefs. Now we're going to sit here 0-3, and they are done, man. The only thing that they have hope with is, again, how bad that division is. But after watching Jacksonville and even after watching Houston, I have more faith in those 2 teams right now than I do with the Colts. Tennessee's in massive trouble. I don't even think we should. Tennessee's just Tennessee, and we can get into this in a second, actually, is looking so foolish for thinking that they could pull a Patriots and get rid of a top-tier wide receiver and everything will be okay. You don't have Tom Brady. You're not the Patriots. They are really stupid for getting rid of A.J. Brown like that. I mean, that's just a bad look. But to wrap it up on the Colts here, Frank Reich, if I was a Vegas odds maker, I would have Frank Reich as the highest odds to be the first coach fired over Matt Rhule. I think Frank Reich should be fired first.
Yeah, let me say this too. One more thing about Reich. You are who you hire in the NFL, coordinator-wise and everything, and we talk about that stuff all the time, how good your coordinators are and everything. He lost Matt Eberflus, who I don't know if he's going to be a good head coach. He's a top-tier defensive coordinator who's really good at that. Who did he hire? He hired Gus Bradley. Mm-hmm. So me as a Jags fan, I watched his defense for 4 or 5 years to see who was the worst head coaching record, and then we kept his protege, Todd Wash. So we ran the cover 3 shell that y'all are running now as an Indianapolis fan. Yeah. What did we just do to that? Because I watched it every week as a Jags fan for about 7 years. They played too high shell to protect their safety, and Lawrence just passed it off down the bottom wide open to people and just carved them up, paper cut after paper cut to beat them that way. Well, I got news for you. Mahomes is going to do the same thing to you next week. And if you try to blitzing, Mahomes is just going to hit you deep. Because for all the stuff Mahomes does that's great, he owned the Raiders for such and such for however many years. He owned them because Gus Bradley was the defensive coordinator there. So if you think it's going to get any better next week, y'all might get your doors blown off because no one plays this defense against this defense as a quarterback better than Patrick Mahomes does. So be prepared for a lot of scoring on the other end against that Colts defense this week.
And Sean, if they do get their doors thrown out, and it's not close, I do believe Frank Reich will get fired. And
I think that's very possible too. But who's the interim? That's the question Colts fans are going to ask. Who's the interim? Are you going to put Gus up there? I don't know if you can do that.
Put Gus up there. I think the season's over. I think Jim Irsay, if they go down 0-3, should be looking to finally, for the first time in the Chris Ballard era, or maybe fire him too, for finally actually go after a young quarterback. It's the perfect time. The quarterback class is great this year.
Not six of them.
You start out bad. That if I'm Jim Irsay and I lose and go down 0-3, I don't care that you might still have a shot in the division. I would be firing everybody and focus on that. Indianapolis fans, we know that we have a hard fan base of you guys. Whenever we talk Indiana sports, we get the most views, the most comments, and the most likes. I want to hear from you. If I could have access to Indianapolis local sports radio, I would listen to it all week because I love that type of stuff. I love when fan bases are pissed off. I want to know what you guys are saying. Let us know. How do you feel? Do you think we're overreacting, or do you think we're not reacting enough? Let me know. Let Sean know. Comment and let us know your thoughts. I want to know the vibes going on because nobody can tell me that they're happy with the way things have started so far. Let's move on to just an unfortunate situation, but it's one of the biggest stories in all of sports right now. It's the Trey Lance scenario. It's the Trey Lance situation, and it is now going to become the most watched storyline for the next year or maybe even 2 years, because now the 49ers are going to be in a situation like the Packers are with Jordan Love, but even worse, because Jordan Love, he just wasn't playing because Rodgers is still so good. Trey Lance is now going to have played like 8 games in 3 years, dude. Like, I don't care how talented you are. I don't care how good you are. And I'm a Trey Lance supporter. I'm a Trey Lance believer. But I don't care if you're Tom Brady or if you're LeBron James. If you only play 8 games in 3 years, you are set up to fail, man. Like, that is really, really hard to overcome that. Sean, you always had skepticism about Trey Lance. What are you thinking right now with this whole situation? Like, to me, I think Jimmy G is going to have a good season because the roster is good, and I think Jimmy G is going to spit on the Niners' face. So for lack of a better term, I think he's going to say, "You guys didn't believe in me. I'm going to come out here, maybe win you the Super Bowl, maybe take you to the Super Bowl, maybe take you to the NFC Championship game, and then I'm going to walk because I don't want your contract. I'm going to walk and I'm going to go be a starter for another team, maybe a Seattle if they don't end up getting a high enough draft pick." Maybe a Panthers, who knows? But I think that's what's going to happen. And then they're going to be forced to roll the dice with Trey Lance. And who knows at that point? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, we have a lot of angles to hit on this story. The first thing is I feel really bad for Trey Lance. I know me and you have a disagreement on his future and projections and everything. But the truth is we were early in a career that really the only way he's ever going to get better is, like you said, he needs reps in real games.
So
The stat you're throwing out 8 games in 3 years, he hasn't played back-to-back games since 2019. So unless you actually get some repetition going, he can practice all he wants to. He's not going to be able to improve without live game reps. Not even preseason reps is going to help that. I mean, the preseason reps are a little bit better, but live game, you've got to get out there and actually experience those shots being fired at you to improve. So I do feel bad about that because I don't want to be right on an injury, and I don't want to, and really I don't like to be right when you're calling for a bust either. You just say the things that you mean and you watch it play out. So that's the first thing, because I really just don't. In the future, I don't feel like he's set up to even succeed at this point because he hasn't played enough. That's the truth. I'll talk about the timeline and say in the short term, they're honestly a better team with Jimmy G right now.
yeah,
I feel very confident watching that. That's the truth. And I do believe what you're saying is true. Jimmy G might go out there, make a playoff run, and then just dip on them because he's mad at them.
Yeah.
We saw how some of these quarterbacks get. Brady was very upset with New England. He wanted to dip out. He dipped out. You could see a little frustration with Rodgers, but that seems to have smoothed over. But the reason that's smoothed over is because they're paying him so much money. And I don't see the Niners giving Jimmy G some huge contract comparable to these top 10 quarterbacks. So I think that in the short term, it's going to be a good season for the 49ers because they have so much talent. But it's going to be kind of the same thing we've seen all along. I wouldn't trust Jimmy G in a big game in the playoffs. I just don't see that. I think he's going to eventually lose to one of the better quarterbacks. As for the future, that's something to look at because honestly, what it did more than anything was it ruined the timeline of things because everyone knows you want to get these young quarterbacks on their rookie deal, and that's how you make hay. Honestly, the timeline was a little strange to start with because they already had all these elite players and they took such a project quarterback to come in. So he was going to have to learn on the job, but they have all these elite Super Bowl caliber players. So you're already at a disadvantage. Now he's going to miss a year. He's going to go into his third year. And this third year, if they do play him, is going to be like this year where he's got to develop on the fly with a bunch of elite players. But then once you get to year 4, if he does improve, you're looking at those elite players leaving their prime some. You're looking at Kittle, probably another 2 years of hits. That's rough. You're looking at Trent Williams. He's an older tackle. That's rough. You're looking at some of these stars aging out. And to replace those aging stars, you're not going to have the 3-4 years of salary cap space to just load your team up that other teams do. So I think the timeline is what's really throwing things for 49ers fans when they look at the future. It's not just that Jimmy G is in now and Lance will be back next year. It's that Lance will need to develop another year. And now the timeline is screwed up and you paid all those picks for him to start with. It's a really messed up situation for the organization in general in the future. And that's one of the things I'm looking at. Let me throw this question to you before you respond to that so you can respond to it all at once. A lot of Niners fans think the reason he got hurt is because Shanahan was running him too much. How do you feel on that? And I'll respond to that once you finish.
Well, I think that listen, if I was Kyle Shanahan, I would run him a lot too. Because as I've said 100 times on this show, the reason why I like him is because of his running ability. That's been like my number one point this whole time. And I'm a sucker for running quarterbacks. Like I am. I have sometimes to a fault end up falling for running quarterbacks because I like them so much. I mean, Marcus Mariota doesn't know how to damn throw a straight pass to save his life. Everything is 90. I understand why the Falcons went out and got a bunch of 6'8", 6'9" guys. That guy cannot throw normal. But he's so fun to watch because he can run. He can run, and I haven't had that in so long. So I can't fault Shanahan for using a kid's strength, man. You know, like how are you going to fault coach for that? If I'm Kyle Shanahan, I'm going to do everything I can to run that guy, especially when all off-season stuff, which you've been talking about, the 49ers have been telling us based on their actions that they're not comfortable with his throwing motion and that they're not comfortable with his throwing. So if you take that into account and that he can run the ball, of course he's going to run the ball. I can't fault that, man. Like I can't blame Kyle Shanahan for that because I would have been using his strengths the exact same way. As you answer yours, I want you to answer this question now. How much pressure does this take off Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch? And the reason I say that is this, Sean. Kyle Shanahan, I don't think would get fired because he's genuinely one of the best coaches in the league. I mean, he is a really good coach. But when you trade that many draft picks and get a quarterback that doesn't work out and you whiff on something like that, it's very hard for the owner to be able to swallow that. And I'm not saying that Trey Lance is a bust yet. It's a whiff yet. But if they had a down year this year, it would have, and Trey Lance played the whole year and everything, it would have been a big conversation. So does this injury in an unfortunate way, and I even hate saying this, kind of let them off the hook a little bit and see what happens moving forward? And again, I know Kyle Shanahan wanted this. This is a theory that we don't need, but I know he wanted Mac Jones. Like I think if he would have taken Mac Jones, everything would have been different. Again, I'm not giving up on Trey Lance, but what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely true. Because now, if you lose in the playoffs or something like that, it's just Jimmy's fault, like it has been the last 2 years. It's just Jimmy's fault at this point. And if they had missed it up with Trey, they would have said, okay, it's a developmental year. That's what we're doing. But it does ease the load off of Kyle a little bit because you've been here before. It's the same as how it has been the last 2 years.
Yeah.
You have Jimmy. You know what Jimmy is. You know what your team is at this point. There's not many big differences there. You're going to go in and it's going to be the same thing. And if they lose, it's going to be, well, that's why we drafted Trey because Jimmy's limited. We need to develop Trey. And honestly, it gives them a little bit of a pass next year because, like I said, it's the development thing that they're going to have. He's going to get live reps. That's all that's going to cure this is Trey getting live reps. And the thing about the Niners fans being mad, I understand you sunk a lot of picks into this player and that you want him to succeed. Because I think Niner fans are more sick of Jimmy than anyone, really, because they see him overthrow passes all the time, whereas me and you see him for about 6-8 games or in big-time games, and you're like, well, they made the playoffs, and then Niner fans are probably like, yeah, it's because of our defense. He's overthrowing passes.
Yeah.
But the thing with Trey is now with the development part, it's pretty clear that they didn't trust his throwing, and that's why they were running him. But that's part of his game. I see a lot of Niner fans talking, he's not Josh Allen. Why are you running like he's Josh Allen? He's not that size. What the Eagles do with Jalen Hurts, that's what Kyle's trying to do. Let's be honest. Everyone, a lot of Niner fans, and that's what I was cautioning people on in the offseason leading up to the season. Niner fans were just obsessed with this idea that this dude was Josh Allen, when Josh Allen's like an outlier of outliers. I mean, small school, terrible accuracy for 2 years, and then all of a sudden he's great. That's just the outlier of outlier things. That doesn't happen in general. That just isn't a thing. But Niner fans were just putting that on Trey constantly. He's got to be Josh Allen. He's Josh Allen. Watch him. He runs. He throws. Strong arm. That's where the mishap was. The truth is he's more Jalen Hurts. And we watched Jalen Hurts play for the Eagles on Monday night. And that's how he's got to play, man. They got to run him with quarterback power. They got to get run plays. Hurts a little bit faster than Lance, I believe, but Lance is a little more physically imposing. And I feel like Lance is a better thrower than Hurts, honestly, even though Hurts has improved with reps over those 2-3 years he's been in the league. So that's where Lance is going to have to improve. He's got to get reps if he wants to get past this bust thing that could be over his head. But I hate to tell you, Niner fans, he shattered his fibula. It wasn't a knee. When he comes in next year for y'all to win games, he's going to have to run the ball. That's the way they're going to have to win with him for a year while he learns how the NFL speed moves and everything. So I'd be prepared for them to start running him again. Shanahan can't call it scared, or else you all aren't going to win games. Would you rather go 12 or 13, and Lance develop and not get hurt? Or would you rather him actually be able to win games? That's how you play with a young quarterback. You go to their strength until they're strong enough to play out of the pocket. That's what we've seen for years. So Niner fans just got to check their expectations a little bit.
Let's move on after I ask you this one question here. if a team, let's say the Falcons, let's say the Falcons, who have actually been competitive in the first 2 games, end up winning too many games where, and I this probably won't happen, but there's a lot of teams that are going to be bad looking for quarterbacks. So let's say, unfortunately, the Falcons get like the 6th pick instead of the 4th pick, 3rd pick, 2 pick, and they don't get the quarterback that they want. And let's say the Falcons are willing to trade for Trey Lance. Should the 49ers consider that?
Oh, 1,000%, yes.
Okay.
I think like I said, it's the timeline I mentioned earlier, and that the fact that then you get off a developmental guy, and you can just go do what you want. Because like I said, maybe they go all in for Jimmy G, but Jimmy G might shun them. I'm telling you, man. In a year or two, Kirk Cousins ain't gonna be on the Vikings after watching this new GM. He already came out and was
he
like,
already said it.
He already came out and basically said it. And these primetime nights and playoff struggles and stuff, I'm telling you, they will have an outlet. Like, nobody thought Matt Ryan was going to be available until they went after Deshaun and that debacle happened.
Yep.
I'm telling you, in the next year or two, Kirk's going to be available, and no one loves Kirk Cousins more than Kyle freaking Shanahan, dude. No one loves him more than him.
You're right about that. That would be he loves Kirk Cousins. That will be fascinating. And you are so right about this new regime in Minnesota not loving Kirk Cousins. And you know who else is not going to love Kirk Cousins for much longer if he keeps that up? Justin Jefferson. Did you see Justin Jefferson's body language last night? He was pissed, and rightfully so. I mean, my goodness, those throws were terrible. And the crazy thing is, the Vikings defense kept them in the game. Like, they had 3 red zone trips. All 3 ended up in turnovers because of Kirk Cousins. They capitalized on 1 or 2 of those. We have a good Monday Night Football game. I think that's a fascinating storyline to watch.
I'd give my left nut for Justin Jefferson to demand a trade in the Jags, trade 2 firsts for him. I would love that. That would be the biggest thing.
Yeah, that wouldn't. There's no way that's going to happen. But I like to dream too.
That's a far out thing. They're going to pay him so much money that he's going to stay there. They're just going to get him back.
He's going to get so much money. I want to move on to something that I think is a massive storyline. I didn't even bring this up, and it just came to my mind as we were talking about Trey Lance get hurt. And I pray that this guy doesn't get hurt. But Sean, the way the Cincinnati Bengals are going, Joe Burrow's going to die. I mean, I'm not even exaggerating, man. The hits that he took on the Cowboys, I was watching the game with my girlfriend. She had to turn away, and she's a doctor. She's on her way to being a doctor. She sees injuries all the time. She loves Joe Burrow. She is upset. She has a fantasy team, and I drafted for her, and I had to pick that. Her only rule was I have to pick Joe Burrow. She thinks he's sexy. She is obsessed with Joe Burrow. She couldn't watch him keep getting hit like that. And I don't like that guy was getting destroyed. And we're on our way to having another Andrew Luck situation, man, with what we're seeing in Joe Burrow right now. They spent all the money to get this line fixed. It looks like they made some terrible decisions with the guys that they brought in because it's not working out. Joe Burrow is, and some of it is his fault for holding the ball too long, but majority of the time, it's the O-line. I genuinely am worried for Joe Burrow, Sean. I really, really am.
Yeah, Joe Burrow is in trouble with that O-line, but I do want to hold off a little bit of judgment here because I'm going to be honest. The Steelers and the Cowboys might be 2 of the higher pressure teams in the league.
No, you're right about that.
So, and it is early for a bunch of new O-linemen who didn't play a lot in the preseason with Joe Burrow being out as well to gel. So I want to see this in about 4 weeks. Let me get about 4 weeks of the O-line gelling.
Well, I just want to be clear because you make a great point. I'm not writing off the Bengals on the season. I'm not. I think the Bengals are way too talented. I think that they're gonna be just fine. I think they'll be back in the playoffs. I'm just talking about for Joe Burrow's long-term health. I'm worried about it.
Yeah, no, I understand. I completely agree with that because that could be an Andrew Luck thing where you're just getting smacked around. And Joe Burrow does have to learn that he doesn't need 25 yards every pass play.
Yes.
That's something that he's got to learn. I will say that I'm happy that Trevor Lawrence has kind of learned that. He took a lot of underneath stuff when it wasn't there and didn't get hit a lot. You see some quarterbacks like Brady did that at a young age. You kind of see how some of these quarterbacks, Matt Ryan was a good example of that.
Yeah.
They learn in year one or year two, you got to take what's given to you underneath. Joe has not got to that point yet. Joe still wants Jamar Chase for 80 every play and is getting him killed back there. But the thing about the line is true. They did spend a lot of money. That is a difference. Andrew Luck never had that luxury. They never even built the line at all. So they just relied on him. At least they've tried. I do want to see this line come together and gel a little bit better. But the other thing about it is Jonah Williams, Williams was probably their best player on the line last year at left tackle. He's getting beat like a drum this year. I think that has more to do with TJ Watt and Micah Parsons than it does the whole line as a whole. So let me see how they do in the next 4 to 5 weeks, see if this line can get together. But if they don't, man, Joe Burrow has taken so many hits that you got to worry about his long-term future, like you said, because you can't keep getting smacked like that because he's taking shots. I mean, it's not like he's getting hit.
No, it's hard shot.
He's taking shot after shot. So that's a good point you're making there. They're definitely a team I'm willing to monitor because I didn't think there was going to be a Super Bowl hangover. But right now they're in trouble, man. They're in trouble at 0-2, and they've got to play a lot better if they want to make the playoffs and make another run. That's a good point on that. Let me ask you about Tua because we're two of the bigger Tua haters out there. How'd you feel after that Tua game? And what are you feeling about Tua after watching him through 2 weeks? Is he a god now? Is he not good? How are we feeling?
Yeah, so a lot of people are going to chalk this up as an excuse, but my number one takeaway out of that game is that Mike McDaniels is the real damn deal. The way he was scheming those receivers open, and a lot of that had to do, which you texted this and you were spot on, with the Ravens just busting coverages left and right, but he was scheming those routes open for those guys really well, man. And Tua, to his credit, was getting them the ball. And that's all that matters. And Tua made some plays with his legs too. That one play where he spinned out of the pass rusher and ran around the other side and hit Gesicki for the touchdown was one of the best plays I've seen of Tua's young career. So I was impressed with Tua. With that being said, let's remember they were down big. Baltimore kind of took off the gas a little bit, and then Baltimore's defense collapsed. And Baltimore and John Harbaugh deserve some blame here. They wanted to get rid of Wink Martindale for whatever reason. They didn't like what he was doing on defense anymore. I don't understand why that was at all. And they paid for it on Sunday. That was bad. But I'll say this. Miami fans should feel much better than when we started the season. Off-season, worry, all that stuff. It clearly shows that all the stuff Tyreek was saying wasn't just bullcrap. He clearly believes in Tua. Mike McDaniels clearly believes in Tua. And you can tell that for the first time of Tua's NFL career, he feels that support, man. And that's important, guys. That's really important. Brian Flores, he was a great coach. He did not support Tua. He did not like Tua. He was not on board with that. He wanted Justin Herbert, and I don't blame him one bit. But you could tell Mike McDaniels trusts Tua a lot. I still think he's got some things he's got to work on. I still don't know how much I love him in the long-term future. But boy, when you have Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and Mike McDaniels, things can start to look really well.
Yeah, that's where I'm feeling. I'm gonna wait and see because that's probably the game of his life right there. I don't see him outplaying that. And actually, he played bad through the first half and pretty shaky through the third quarter. It was the fourth quarter that really elevated that. So I'm willing to go with. I'm not saying he's at his worst, which was some of the Flores situations. I'm not saying that's the player he is, and I'm not saying he's the fourth quarter Tua all the time. But in reality, he's probably somewhere in between. He's probably going to be somewhere in that 10 to 15 range of quarterbacks, which you see all the time with the Kirk Cousins and the Daks. And when you surround those players with talent like the Dolphins have done enough to make Tua be viable for them to actually be legitimate playoff contenders, which I do believe the Dolphins are at this point. So that's where I am on Tua. I want to see him have to elevate the team when it's not a bunch of blown coverages and make some dime tight window throws. I do want to see that. But I do feel as Dolphins fans, you were all hype about it. You came after us a little bit on the shows, and we maybe we were a little low and you were a little high, and it's somewhere in between. But I do want to say that at least y'all had the whole Tua Flores thing being an issue, being kind of right there. And I will admit that he's a little bit better than I thought he was this year. Not going to go and say he's a lead or anything, but I do believe y'all are actually viable playoff contenders in a strong AFC, and that Tua is not going to hold you back from that. Let's put it that way.
And I will say this week, he has another great opportunity. The Bills come into town on a short week for the Bills. Supposedly it's going to be really, really hot. I want to see him put consecutive performances in a row. Not like that. He doesn't have to throw 6 touchdowns every week, but
59 yards.
Yeah, I want to see him win games for the team week after week. And I do want to bring this up real quick, and then we can move on. My goodness, Lamar Jackson is good.
Oh, yeah.
That loss had nothing to do with Lamar. Dude, the Ravens, they need to pay this guy. Because if he keeps doing this, Sean, throughout the whole season, I don't know if they're going to be able to pay him. I'm serious. Lamar Jackson seems like he is going to stand firm on what he wants. And if he has this type of season all throughout the year, he's going to want so much more than he's already asking for. The Ravens might be in big trouble. Lamar Jackson, dude, I was mind blown by how he played on Sunday. That guy is incredible, man.
Yeah, if Lamar keeps this up, I'm holding strong and just playing the rest of the season this way. And then in the offseason, whenever they bring me whatever contract beats out whatever new quarterback is out there, I hold on to it again, and I let Herbert and Burrow get paid, and then I go for more than them. That's what I'm doing if I'm Lamar. Yeah. But he doesn't have an agent, so that's kind of going to be in the little bit of thing. But the Ravens definitely need to pay the guy. They're going to tag him for sure next year. Let's be honest. That's how the NFL works. They're going to tag him. If I'm Lamar, I'm willing to leave. I'm willing to do everything. You give me the money I want, and if I'm the Ravens, I got to pay him. Because to be honest, he's the whole offense. Let's be real. He's kind of made Mark Andrews a little bit. Andrews does get open well, so I'm not trying to take too much away from Andrews. But he's that top target in that offense. Look at Bateman. That was a good play.
Yeah.
But Lamar's really doing it a ton with the run and the pass, the way he's handling everything. Lamar's on a different level, man, so he's got to get his money for sure, and I understand him holding out for more of it. Let me ask you this, because I know we're in North Carolina. Matt Rhule, I know you said Frank Reich might be the first fired. Do you think Matt Rhule makes another 3 games?
No, Matt Rhule's done. Matt Rhule is done. That team plays some very uninspiring football, man. Matt Rhule has lost that team. They don't play inspired at all. They look like they've quit. The defense was decent against that okay offense at the Giants. Matt Rhule's in big trouble. And I'm going to be honest with you, man. I have a couple, Panthers friends that I talk to. They said this, and I fully believe it. I think Matt Rhule wants out. I don't even think Matt Rhule wants to be there anymore, man. I think he wants to go back to college. This has been an utter disaster, an absolute disaster. And David Tepper deserves some blame here. This guy wanted the house for Matt Rhule. He gave him everything, every single thing he wanted. He made him the highest paid coach we've seen come out of college. He spoiled Matt Rhule, and that was a bad decision, and he deserves some blame. And there's Charlotte fans that already are pissed off at Tepper because of this whole new training camp place that didn't work out, and he wants to build a new stadium. Where's it going to be? Does he really actually want to be in Charlotte? There's a lot of questions that he actually wants to move the team. I don't think that would ever happen, though, but there's a lot going on there. The Panthers are a disaster, bro. And I don't even know where they go from here, to be fully honest with you, but Matt Rhule's going to get fired. I don't know if he's the first fired. Matt Rhule's going to get fired. It could be if they lose to the Saints on Sunday.
Yeah, I saw a lot of people trendy picking them to make the playoffs and make a run. Like I said, you were off of that at the beginning of the year. We talked about it. But I'm going to keep hammering my point. Matt Rhule basically did everything Urban Meyer did, but he's done it over a few years span instead of in one all at once.
And it just wasn't it wasn't as loud as Urban. Yeah. Urban's was a little bit more loud.
And it wasn't as quick, but it's the college coach trifecta, man. He now doesn't have them prepared to play, all those fumbles on the opening drive. And then on top of that, terrible decision-making. A great one as a college coach. Happens all the time. Punts it away with like 2 minutes left. Doesn't get the ball back when you're down by 4 or 5. Yeah. Can't be doing stuff like that. That's fireable for coaching. That's just mismanagement in general. You got to go for that. I understand why Panthers fans are frustrated. I got some text. Oh, that was a terrible call. always got to go. You can't be doing that. Stuff like that is just inexcusable. And not only that, we saw it with Urban not using James Robinson last year. Where's McCaffrey at, man? Not even using McCaffrey. The best player out there, not even using him. So that's the college coach trifecta, man. Just go away from your best players. So that it's a mess in Carolina. Feel bad for a lot of the Panther fans out there. Probably something else. You want to hit Trubisky and then get out of here?
Yeah, real quick though, I do just want to say Matt Rhule is a hell of a college coach.
Oh, in college, he's dominant. He'll go back to college after this and be fine.
And he'll be fine. If I was him, I'd be running to go back there. Yeah, let's hit Trubisky. I don't understand why they don't make the switch to Kenny Pickett right now, man. Listen, the Patriots defense played really, really well on Sunday, but I bet on the Patriots. I knew the Patriots was going to go in and win that game. I just don't understand the point of not playing Pickett. He showed us he's ready. Unless they're seeing something behind the scenes, Sean, that is making them not want to play Pickett, I don't get it. Because I'll be fully honest with you, man. Trubisky's even hurting Najee Harris. Najee Harris, 2 weeks into the season, a lot of people picked him, especially in fantasy, to be one of the best running backs in the league this year. A lot of people took high picks on him in fantasy drafts. He's been an absolute disaster. And I know that has a lot to do with the offensive line being really, really bad. I still love Najee Harris. I think he's going to be a great player. But I just don't think that this offense is playing good football. And to be honest with you, I think that they need to get a bump, man. I think Pickett brings a bump to the whole team, an excitement bump. I think Deontay Johnson will love it. I think the offensive line will play better, even though they're not very good. I don't see how anybody can give me 1 point of why you wouldn't play Pickett. 1 point. That's good.
Yeah, I think a lot of the fans are in between bench Trubisky and fire Matt Canada. Is it Canada or Canada?
It's Canada.
It's Canada. Yeah. There are a lot in there. It's between the two of them. So I think you see a lot of fans. It's like this offense is terrible, this and that. But then you see all 22 sky shots of Pickens and Deontay Johnson just running wide open and not getting the ball. So I think it's a combination of the two. I think the offense is a little bit prehistoric, just in the scheme fashion of it. Not a lot of movement, not a lot of deception there. Kind of making the reads a little tough. Quarterback's got to be able to read the full field. So maybe that's why they don't have Pickett in there. But at the same time, Pickett was like a 4-year starter in college. And the time is now to put him in.
He's ready
He
to
was
go.
the most ready quarterback coming out last year. And if you're going to draft him in the first, put him out there and start the reps up. That's again that we talked about with Trey Lance. Quarterbacks need reps. Get him out there and just let him start. He can't be any worse than Trubisky was. Let's be honest.
No.
They should have won that game against the Patriots, but their offense was so bad and atrocious. They held Mac Jones down as easily as you can, other than the one crazy Aguilar catch that got him in the end zone.
Yeah.
Well, you can't play this defense game like this anymore as the Steelers. You got to go out there and score. Get the right quarterback in there. Get the offense rolling. They've got to make the change soon, or else this is going to be a long season for the Steelers. That's going to be an ugly Thursday night game, by the way.
Very ugly.
That's going to be some 1980s football right there. It's going to be an ugly game. They need to win it, though, or else I think you got to get rid of Trubisky at this point and put Pickett in, especially if you lose to the Browns, because your Steelers defense is going to be able to hold Brissett, and it's tough to run on that Steelers defense. So it's going to be an ugly game. 3-6 maybe?
Something like it's going to be old school AFC North football. And let me just say this. If Ben Roethlisberger was still there, they win that game on Sunday.
Oh.
Because something that people don't give Big Ben credit for, the reason they won so many games with Big Ben towards the later of his career is because he was clutch in fourth quarters. He would make the right plays at the end of game. He was bad at a lot of stuff towards the end of his career, but he knew how to win games at the end. And they would play. They were still trying to play with that same model. The defense keeps them in the game, and then Hall of Famer Big Ben comes in at the end and wins it for them. They don't have Hall of Famer Big Ben now.
Titty kisser Trubisky back there.
Yeah, so Trubisky's not going to get it done. So why not see what you have in a 4-year starter who looked really good in the preseason? Yeah, who looked really good in the preseason, and the whole city loves him because he went to Pittsburgh. I don't get it. I know Tomlin and the Steelers organization is very stern. They don't like to make rash decisions and all that stuff, but this season will get away from them if they don't make a decision soon. Anything else you want to talk about before we head out?
No, I think the Cowboys had a big win. I don't want to break it down or anything, but that would save their season right there because if they'd have went 0-2 and then all of a sudden it just is a downward spiral without Dak, that was a big time win for them. The
So
AFC
you're
South is insane.
so you're telling me that we have a quarterback controversy with Cooper
No,
Rush and Dak Prescott?
no quarterback controversy there, but they saved their season with that win. They had to have that one. The Raiders are in shambles. We didn't really get to talk a lot of Raiders.
We need to talk about the Raiders next time.
Yeah, okay. We'll get to them later in the week.
Because remember, man, that's another coach that was why is Josh McDaniels getting hired? That's a bad start, man. That's a really bad start. And Carr deserves a lot of blame too. That was a terrible second half. Devontae Adams might be like, should I really have left Aaron Rodgers for this? Like, really? I mean, because in the AFC West, bro, that's bad.
Yeah, we'll break that down when we do our weekend preview because we were going a little long today. So we'll break that down later in the week. That one, and then obviously the AFC South. We'll probably talk about it more when we preview it this week. That division's in shambles, and nobody really thought about the Jags as a team. I'm telling you, the Jags should be 2-0 right now. Jags look organized. They have a tough 2 games coming up, but after that, I'm telling you, that division's going to be up for grabs. And that's not the fandom in me, I don't think, speaking. I think they actually look like the best team in the division right now.
If I was to make a bet with my own hard-earned money right now on who wins it, I'd pick the Jags, and I don't even think it'd be close. I'm not even kidding, man. I might pick Houston to come in second. I'm dead serious, dude.
And
like
all the fans want Mills benched.
I don't think Mills is that bad. That's.
I don't think he's that bad either. The fans just want him gone because he didn't put up a touchdown or whatever. But yeah, we'll talk about that more in the later weeks. I just wanted to hit on them real quick. We're going to be back with college tomorrow because we didn't get a college show up last week. Which if we're going to miss a college show, week 2 and 3 was the perfect time. That's where the matchups kind of fell down. Yeah. But we had some coach firings. We had some stuff like that. We'll go over that stuff that we missed tomorrow on the show. I'm going to upload this one almost immediately after this. Then we'll get the college one up in the next day or two, and then we'll be back to preview later in the week.
Yeah, I'm really, really excited about the college show. I already have a bunch of candidates listed out where I think that they should go for these new jobs. I'm really excited. I'm dialed into college hard right now, maybe more than ever because my Falcons hate me and want me to die unhappy. So I've really moved on to college. All right, that is all for the Money Down Pod. That is Sean White. You can follow him at Dumpster Fire Fan, myself at Kayvon_sports. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Comment, let us know your thoughts. Indy fans, Dolphins fans, Raiders fans, where are you guys at? Speak up. Let's hear the passion. Let us know your thoughts. Like, subscribe. It really helps us out a bunch. And we'll talk to you tomorrow as we break down the college football and what's going on there. Have a good rest of your week.